The first law is hunger. Foam exploded off the slate sea as a shadow knifed downward. Avery cut the wind knife thin, fleeing the plunge that split the air behind her. Thunder stacked like cliffs, and the horizon vanished into iron. Raze screamed, a hard blade of sound that made the air taste like metal. Avery said, "Not here, not now." The ocean heaved, lifting her, then dropping her into a trough of salt and roar. Lightning stitched the clouds, and the sky flinched white. Raze folded his wings and fell again. Avery said, "Move or end." Rain arrived in sheets, cold as teeth. The wind tumbled her mid-turn, and the sea rose up like a mouth. She caught a gust by instinct, and skimmed the wave's wet spine. A shattered fish slicked the surface and gulls wheeled, feral and bright. Raze veered, calculating. "Avery," said live through this minute. The storm shoved at everything, equal and cruel. Raze tested the gale and smiled with his speed. The sea answered with a taller wall. Avery said, "Find the gap." The gap was a breath wide and closing. The storm learned her shape and pressed where she bent. Avery said, "Hold the line." The sky traded thunder for a low grinding moan. Raze circled, choosing patience over fury. The sea turned darker as rain bled its color into the swells. A log rolled like a sleeping beast and then vanished in foam. "Avery," said, "Climb or drown." She rode a sliver of lift that tasted like ice and salt. The wind snagged a feather and spun it away like ash. Raze tested the edge and rose, a silent threat against a torn cloud. The fish slicks smeared into nothing, and the gulls were gone. The air thinned from cold, and her muscles shook in small, bright jolts. Avery said, "North is a promise, not a place." The horizon crawled back, a bruised line under a lid of rain. The storm kept its teeth but unclenched its jaw. Raze drifted, a shadow with time to spend. Avery said, "Count the breaths and spend none." Wind shifted like a door unlatching. Avery said, "There." She angled toward a paler seam where rain broke into mist. Raze slid across it first and drew a thin arc, measuring her intent. The sea softened from blades to bruises. A swell lifted her, not to drown but to carry. She felt the quiver in her chest become a steady drum. Avery said, "Steal what the sky forgets." Foam collapsed in quiet sighs, and the world gained edges again. Raze hung above her shadow like a second moon. He did not rush, he waited for her to tire into mistake. The clouds peeled back and sunlight tried the water with cautious fingers. A single flying fish burst and stitched a brief silver line. Avery said, "Keep the rhythm." She matched the chop, beat for beat, breath for breath. The fear did not leave, but it learned to sit still. A darker band of cloud crawled low, hiding a scarp of wind that could snap her like a twig. Avery said, "Read it first." She rose a feather's width and tracked the ripples that betrayed the trap. Raze dipped as if to end it, and then lifted again, unwilling to waste force on guesswork. The sea built a table-flat run that promised speed and punishment. Avery said, "Skim the knife." She arrowed forward, letting the air's thin skin hold her. The surface hissed, a white seam stretching under her path. Raze flared and marked her line. He was a ledger that never forgave. The hiss grew into a scream as gusts braided and pulled. Avery said, "Now." She hopped the scarp with a snap, and the world lurched, then leveled. Raze struck too late and lost the angle. The trap closed behind her and shattered into harmless spray. Silence arrived like a stranger at the edge of town. Not peace, only the pause between fists. Avery said, "Inventory." Wings burned, chest hammered, but lift answered again and again. Raze hovered in the tall blue and let the sky hold him steady. He had time, storms end, hunger does not. The horizon revealed a smear of darker water, a current lane, a road without signs. Avery said, "Follow the cold river." She slipped into the lane, and felt the invisible hand pull. The air smelled of kelp and distance. The sea settled into long breaths that matched her own. Raze drifted, bored of patience sharpening intention. Avery said, "I am not done." The storm shrank to a bruise behind her, and the bruise kept its lesson. Ahead, the sky cleared to a ruthless, flawless blue. The first law waited there too. The storm was behind her, but the weight of silence pressed harder than thunder. Avery said, "Now, you count what is left." Her wings shivered from strain, muscles raw and hollow. She felt hunger claw like a hook in her belly. The sea widened into a slate plain, endless, uncaring. Above, Raze still mocked her shadow, patient as stone. Avery said, "The sky is not mercy, it is measure." A streak of sunlight broke open the waves, bright but cold, too thin to warm. A single thought stitched her wings together. Continue. No flock, no echo, only breath. Raze tilted once, watching. He did not strike. He understood the game of attrition. Avery said, "They will not write songs of this flight." Yet her heart thudded with the stubborn note of survival. A gull's cry carried from nowhere, sharp as memory, then was gone. She pressed harder into the current. Every second was purchase against nothingness. The hunger carved at her, not sudden but steady, a knife turned by patience. "Avery," said salt air does not fill. Her eyes scanned the rolling skin of the ocean. Then a flicker, silver in the trough, a bait fish leaping like a broken coin. She folded and plunged, body an arrow. The sea closed, bitter and crushing, and she burst through with empty bill. The fish was gone. She rose dripping, heavier than before. Raze drifted closer, talons flexing as though he smelled her failing strength. Avery said, "Try again or vanish." A second glimmer teased her, farther, riskier. She turned, ignoring the ache in her wings. Each dive was debt she could not repay, but she refused stillness. The ocean roared its indifference. Above, the shadow never blinked. "Avery," said the sea does not share, "you must steal." She leveled herself along a darker band of water where the current dragged shoals unseen. Her body shook, but her focus narrowed, trained on the faint ripples betraying life below. Then a sudden shimmer, a school, fractured and flashing like glass shards. She plunged again, slicing into the cold. This time she rose with a small fish, silver twisting between her bill. Relief burned sharper than joy. Raze dropped a length, testing her victory, but did not strike. He wanted her weakened, not finished yet. "Avery," said one mouthful as a reprieve, not a cure. She gulped the fish whole, its taste gone before she could savor. Still, it stitched another heartbeat to her thread of endurance. The meal steadied her, but it was a candle in a cave. "Avery," said still, the shadow follows. She knew Raze's patience was as dangerous as his talons. He would not waste strength, he would wait for hers to ebb. The horizon gave nothing. No island, no flock, only the seam between endless water and pale sky. Her wings grew heavier with each beat, yet she refused to fold. The sun climbed higher, burning color out of the sea until it glared white. "Avery," said pain, "is proof you are not finished." Her heart rattled against the cage of her chest, but rhythm carried her forward. Above, Raze drifted like a star that would not fade. She hated his calm, his stillness. Every moment he survived her, he confirmed her fragility. Avery said not yet. Memory returned unbidden, sharp as hunger. Avery saw the flock she once followed, their cries scattered like sparks in storm winds. One by one, gone, lost to waves or sky. She was the remnant, a thread cut loose. Avery said, "Carry the ghost weight." The sea glittered below, mocking with its endless sameness. She beat her wings harder, each stroke a rebellion against emptiness. Raze was still there, relentless as time, the mirror of survival's cruelty. She would not forget the lost, though they gave her no strength. Instead, their absence pressed her to endure longer, to not surrender her place in the air. Avery said, "For those vanished, I do not fall." The horizon remained empty, but within her, a core burned against despair. The sea changed first, its skin tightening as if bracing for a blow. Avery said something sharp is coming. The wind veered, thin and fast, and her balance faltered. Raze narrowed the circle and let gravity write his intent. Dark lines stitched the horizon, a squall with iron in its teeth. The water rose in files, ranks of marching ridges. Avery said, "Pick the lane or be taken." She traced the trough, reading the minute dimples that told of traps. A pale slick spread ahead, faint rainbow on gray, and the air tasted chemical. Raze tilted, proving the hazard, saving strength. She rode the edge to miss the sheen, but the gusts slapped sideways. Her wingtip kissed poison and burned coal. Avery said, "Do not touch it again." The squall's front hit with needles of rain that bruised. The sky closed like a lid, and the day shrank. Raze climbed, waiting for the stumble that would make her simple. The slick broke apart into threads that crawled like webs over the surface. Avery said, "Do not drink, do not touch." A clear ribbon of plastic woke from a wave and lashed her primaries. Pain flared bright as lightning. She rolled hard and the ribbon clung, dragging her downward. Raze folded, scenting the instant when effort outpaced lift. She snapped her bill at the line and tore free a shred, but not all. The weight pulled like a small hand. Avery said, "Shake it off or end in water." She climbed into the nail-hard rain and rattled her wings. The plastic let go, whipped away, and vanished into the gray. Raze checked his dive and rose, annoyed by survival. She felt the burn in the muscles the storm had taxed. Avery said, "You were not allowed to quit." The squall laughed with hail that never formed. A break appeared like a mercy open to anyone brave enough to steal it. Dolphins churned a bait ball, and the sea boiled silver. Avery said, "Take the living light." She plunged and rose with a wriggling spark, breath hitching. Raze skimmed the chaos, unwilling to trade control for frenzy. Another tern cut across her path, quick and hungry, a thief with timing like a blade. He snapped at her bill and missed by a feather's width. Avery said, "Earn your own." The school fractured and recombined, a heartbeat of food in a starving world. She took a second fish and swallowed hard against the ache. Raze dropped, tested the smell of panic, and chose patience again. The other tern shadowed her, calculating. The water flashed and then dimmed as the dolphins sank. Avery said, "Pay for every mouthful later." The feast ended in seconds. The boil faded, and the world returned to hunger and rules. A low engine throb crept through the wind, too steady to be storm. Avery said, "Keep clear." A long-line vessel shouldered the swell, its flags stiff, its baited wires combing the air. Hooks glittered like teeth on invisible mouths. Raze slid leeward, using the ship's wake as shield and trap. Birds gathered, pulled by promise and ignorance. Kane dived at a bait strip and rose with a hook flirting near his throat. Avery said, "Leave it." He ignored her sky voice and shook the lure until it fell. A wave slapped the deck and the crew moved like ghosts behind rain. Raze pivoted, charting paths between wires, hunting the weak turned reckless. Avery said, "This air is mine." She veered wide, spending strength on caution the others would not. The vessel slid behind rain and left the sky rigged with silence. Evening leaned in, cold and blue. Avery said, "Count heat, count height." Fatigue throbbed like a second heart. Raze finally chose the hour, the air cooled and dense, the edge tilted his way. He fell without sound, a verdict written in muscle. She felt the pressure of his approach before shadow touched her. Avery said, "Turn into the knife." She snapped into the wind and let it bite, trading speed for angle. Talons flashed and missed, close enough to carve air. He rose and cut again, no flourish, only function. Avery said again then. She dropped to a narrower layer where Chop flung spray that masked her. Raze did not tire. He adjusted. The light bled from the horizon, and the sea forgot its color. The chase became a blueprint of intent. The storm had passed, but its teeth lingered in the air. Avery said, "The sea hides knives of its own." A new shadow broke the horizon, not Raze, but a massive fin slicing steady. A predator of the deep followed her line, patient and silent. The sea glittered false calm, hiding intent below. Raze circled higher, cautious of the giant that owned the water. Avery said, "Air is mine, sea is not." She beat harder, every dive forgotten, every glide a gamble. The fin traced her shadow across the waves, a hunter tethered to her flight. For the first time she understood, the enemy above was not the only one. Raze watched her, and his stillness said he knew this truth long before her. Avery said, "There is no safe element, only borrowed time." The fin vanished, but dread clung heavier than sight. Avery said, "Unseen is worse than seen." She kept higher than comfort, wings aching, heart beating loud in her throat. Raze glided wide, not hunting her but measuring. His patience had meaning now. The sea itself could strike. A surge broke below, spray exploding as the predator breached, then sank again. Avery flinched, almost breaking rhythm. The world tilted, fragile balance undone by fear. Raze stooped near but pulled away, as if mocking her struggle. Avery said, "Hold or be swallowed." Every wingbeat carried weight beyond hunger, beyond storm. The ocean's silence mocked her. Nothing hunted alone, not above, not below. The truth unfolded cruelly. Raze was not her only pursuer, he was survivor of the same rules, bound by a harsher order. Avery said, "You are not hunter alone, you are hunted too." She saw him jerk away when the sea boiled sudden beneath. His dive was not for her, but escape from the dark mouth below. In that moment, predator and prey shared the same fate, the same law. The twist struck colder than rain. Survival chained them both. Avery said, "We are mirrors, not enemies." Raze climbed, shaken but resolute, his arrogance cracked. She rose too, tasting solidarity that would never become alliance. The fin returned, carving patience under both shadows. Above and below, no safety. The current shifted, carrying her closer to a drifting carcass, a whale's body swollen and broken. Life swarmed over death. Sharks tore strips while seabirds dived, chaos thick with noise. Avery said, "Life eats what it can." Raze stooped sharp, not at her, but at the feast, ripping flesh to fuel his strength. For the first time he turned his hunger elsewhere, leaving her breathing space. She circled, tempted by scraps, but fear stiffened her wings. Below was only massacre. She refused the gift of carrion, though her belly knotted with need. Avery said, "Not all food is worth the cost." The dead giant drifted, feeding every life but its own. Night pressed down, a lid without cracks. Avery said, "Dark hides nothing, it magnifies fear." Stars lit the black dome, but the sea erased horizon. The fin was gone, the carcass behind, yet she felt eyes in the water, wings heavy with memory. Raze was still present, a black dart faint against starlight. She understood the hidden truth now. The sky was not her home, only her borrowed stage. Every flight was temporary, every breath rented from elements that owed her nothing. Avery said, "You are last because there is no flock left." The words echoed without answer. Above, Raze rode night winds, stripped of arrogance. Both carried truths, both chained by endless survival. Avery said, "The law is no victor." Dawn rose not gentle but sharp, bleeding red across the horizon like a wound. Avery said, "The sky promises nothing but tests." Her wings burned raw, every feather a blister of labor. Raze circled lower, his patience gone, hunger demanding. He stooped without warning, claws open, the air screaming as he cut. Avery twisted into the strike, bill snapping, wings shearing against his shadow. The clash rattled her body, nearly folding her midair. Raze rose again, relentless. Avery said, if you fall, fall fighting. The sea clawed below, waiting for its share. She angled into the wind, trading height for survival. Each beat hammered like a war drum. Raze shrieked, a blade of sound that split the morning air. She flinched, then steadied, eyes narrow with refusal. Avery said, not yet, not ever, in silence. The chase broke into violence, unending. Avery said, every breath is a blade. Raze struck again, talons scraping air where her body had just been. She skimmed a wave, salt spray cutting her like glass. He folded, dove harder, his shadow slicing her path. Avery climbed too steep, wings trembling, chest near collapse. She whispered into the gale, climb or break. Talons grazed her tail feathers, ripping a single plume. The pain flared, but the escape bought a second. Raze screamed, no triumph, only hunger sharpened. The sea rolled with tall gray ridges, each crest a wall to crush. Avery said, make the wall your ally. She slid between two rising peaks, Raze forced to break angle or drown. The water swallowed his strike, and she rose gasping, alive again by inches. The world narrowed to one rhythm, beat, dodge, survive. Avery said, your hunger is not greater than my will. She surged into a crosswind, body rattled by its violence. Raze twisted after, cutting angles with brutal grace. They spiraled upward, the air itself turned into battlefield. A gull screamed overhead, witness and warning, then vanished into distance. Avery's body shook, but her eyes sharpened into focus beyond pain. She said, I will not be ledger for your claws. Raze stooped a third time, silent, precise. She dropped sudden, the dive tearing her chest, the sea rushing up. He missed by a breath, his wing brushing spray instead of flesh. Avery pulled hard, water burning her belly feathers, rising broken but alive. Raze cried once, not defeated, only furious. The chase carried higher, both tethered to survival. The climax tore through silence, raw and brutal. Avery said, this is the law written in blood and air. Raze struck once more, faster, stronger, merciless. His talons scraped her flank, pain slicing deep, warm blood streaking feathers. The world snapped into red haze. She twisted, wings convulsing, and lashed her bill against his wing. The strike shocked him, broke his rhythm. Raze flared too wide, air betraying him, balance stolen. Avery staggered, blood dripping, but wings still beat. She said, not yours, not yet. Raze screamed, a jagged sound of fury, not victory. The sea raged below, begging for one to fall. But she climbed, wings broken, heart defiant, body torn but unbent. The moment burned like fire. Breathless silence followed the clash, broken only by the sea's roar. Avery said, if I'm scarred, I'm still alive. Her wings shook, blood cooling in streaks, but she carried forward, each beat a rebellion. Raze circled back, slower, his eye unreadable. No victory, no surrender, only recognition. The air tasted of iron and salt. Avery said, survival is no triumph, it is endurance. The sky spread wide, merciless, yet she carved a path through it. The ocean waited below, endless as death. Raze drifted higher, choosing patience again. She pressed northward, wounded, relentless, carrying scars like medals no one would honor. The climax had come and left her body marked but spirit unbroken. She said, I will not fall while breath remains. The horizon softened into pale gold, the sea stretching calm yet endless. Avery said, every scar speaks, but none heal in the air. Blood crusted her wing, pain gnawed steady, but still she cut forward. Raze circled higher, his strikes paused, his hunger tempered by fatigue. The war between them slowed, replaced by silence thick as the sea. Avery said, I am not safe, I am not finished. The ocean glittered cruel, a mirror to her fragility. A current tugged beneath, whispering of distance. Raze tilted, then rose, conserving what strength remained. Avery's eyes narrowed, not at him, but at the void ahead, knowing it promised no mercy. She said, "Survival is not victory, it is debt unpaid." The morning light sharpened her outline against the wide sky, a lone thread of defiance woven through emptiness. The sun rose harsher, stripping color from water, painting the sea in blinding silver. "Avery," said light, "does not forgive, it exposes." Her wings strained, every beat a shout against collapse. She skimmed a glimmering swell, body trembling, but heart fierce. Raze lingered high, not striking, only watching, his patience uncanny. The sky held them both, yet favored neither. A shoal passed beneath, silver flashes tempting, but she lacked strength for another dive. Avery said hunger is louder than fear, but fear keeps you alive. She carried on, empty yet burning, a vessel of will. Raze banked once, testing, then pulled back, conserving. The world grew stiller, only her breath breaking rhythm. Avery said stillness is not peace, it is a pause before another wound. The sea rolled wide and slow, pretending calm. Avery said calm hides deeper teeth. Her memory returned to the vanished flock, voices swallowed by storms. Alone was no fate, it was sentence. She shook blood from feathers, breath burning raw. Raze circled further out, his outline blurred in haze. He did not abandon, nor press, simply remained. The ocean swelled heavy beneath, as if waiting for a body. Avery said, "I carry them in silence." The wind pressed steady, cold as iron, and she matched its rhythm. Her shadow stretched long, thin against silver waves, a fragile mark on a vast page. Raze banked once, acknowledgement without mercy. Avery said, "This path does not forgive, but I fly it still." Clouds gathered faint, thin veils crossing the sun, shadows stitching the water. Avery said, "Every shadow is memory." Her body weakened, yet instinct pressed her onward. She traced a current lane, wings stiff, refusing collapse. Raze cut closer, his body low, talons flexing as if to test, then slowed, letting the moment stretch. Hunger bound him, but so did patience. Avery said, "You wait for silence from my wings." She wove through shifting light, each beat a rebellion. Pain traced every feather, but endurance carried her forward. The ocean below darkened with streaks of deeper current, promising cold. Raze rode wind above her shoulder, predator watching but not striking. Avery said endurance itself, his survival's voice. The horizon tilted toward dusk, a smear of orange bleeding over fading blue. Avery said the day dies, but I do not. Her body shivered with exhaustion, each wing beat carved from bone. Still she pressed, carrying scars that felt heavier than flesh. Raze drifted behind her, quieter now, not predator alone, but shadow of inevitability. The sea darkened, sighing with long heavy swells. Avery said, "Every scar is proof of flight." Her chest burned, lungs raw, yet she swallowed pain like air. The sun dropped lower, its light a last ember. Raze did not stoop. He only watched, recognition in stillness. Avery said, "End is not defeat, it is the circle closing." She carved the fading light with wings, refusing to fall. Night stretched endless, horizon erased, only stars carving faint paths overhead. Avery said, "The sky is not comfort, only witness." Her body ached, wings trembling, yet her heart refused silence. Raze shadowed her still, neither strike nor retreat, just presence. The sea rolled black and glassy, hiding what lived below. Avery said, "The end is always waiting, but it will not take me gently." The stars burned like cold fire, indifferent. Every wing beat was both wound and proof. She cut through darkness, fragile thread against eternal void. The air thinned, colder than before, breath burning like ice. Avery said, "Every breath is a battle." Her wounds stiffened, feathers clumped with dried salt and blood. Still she pressed forward, her shadow lost in night. Raze lingered closer, body cutting faint glints of starlight. He had become less predator, more judge, waiting for her surrender. Avery said, "You will not write my ending." The sea whispered below, endless and patient. She shivered but carried on, defiance her only fuel. A faint glow bled on horizon, thin line of dawn promising nothing but exposure. "Avery," said light returns, "but it carries no mercy." Her chest heaved, wings sluggish yet unbroken. Rays lifted higher, silhouette sharp against pale line of sky. Together they moved, bound not by choice but law. The ocean below brightened faint, swells glowing silver. Avery said, "I endure not for triumph, but because breath remains." Every scar marked her body, but each was proof of fight. The day sharpened into color, blue stretching, merciless. Avery said, "The circle closes, but I remain inside it." Her body trembled, each wing beat a rebellion against collapse. Raze drifted apart, his hunger cooled by fatigue, his presence still a verdict. The ocean shimmered, vast endless road without shore. Avery said, "The flock is gone, but I carry their shadow." Her cry pierced the open air, thin yet unbroken, a call no one would answer, yet it echoed across silence. The sea and sky became one endless mirror, no boundary, only vastness. Avery said, "I am last, yet I still fly." Her wings carried scars, her body bent by hunger, but her spirit unyielding. Raze no longer circled close, his shadow faded into distance. She alone carved the silence, a lone survivor stitched into sky. The echo of her cry lingered across horizon, not victory, not defeat, but proof. Avery said, "Remember the flight, not the fall." The air swallowed her words, leaving the image eternal.